Hello and welcome back to Nolan Financial Radio. My name is Tara Nolan with Nolan Financial. Welcome to anybody who's new. I would just say we do a lot of educational topics on the show. Today, we're going to be talking about some insights and things to know about taxes. But I would say, please visit my website at www.nolanfinancialpartners.com. While you're there, you can click on the radio page because we record these shows and there's a lot of educational material that you can go back and figure out what's your issue that you need some more information about. And also, as we go through the show, especially if you have a tax question and you want to go, how do I coordinate with my CPA to really get after this? Give Chris and I a call at 719-210-4242. That's 719-210-4242. And Chris and I will get you connected with the right team to answer all these questions that you're going to have for your financial success. But meanwhile, before we jump into the show, let me say hello to my amazing co-host, Tony Shore. Tony, how are you doing today?
Well, I don't know about amazing, but
I know.
Well, I'm doing great now that I'm here with you, and I got to talk to Chris a little bit earlier. He's been busy meeting with folks, talking to our listeners who call in, so that's great. You've got a great husband and a business partner there with Chris. I love the guy, and we got to drag him on the show again sometime. That would be fun to have both of you on together.
Right.
But yeah, I've been good. How have you been? You've been busy since you've been back, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's just the new standard of life, Tony. But
is busy.
We got to take that beautiful trip to Germany, and I've never spent much time in the European continent, so that's really fun to go and see all these places that I've heard about before.
Yeah,
and then
that's
the book,
neat.
The book is at the proofreader now. The next step will be the typesetter. What a process to write a book! Hats off. Now when I walk through bookstores, I just go, wow. That was a lot of work to get that book.
Yeah. Can you imagine that? And there's so many books and so many great books, and you don't realize what goes into something like that until you actually experience it for yourself. I didn't realize how much went into it until, I've been sharing with you every week. You tell me what you've been doing with the book for the past, I don't know, few years. So it is a lot of work. I know because you've worked hard on it. Of course, not everybody, I think, is as meticulous and as caring about the final product as you are. I'm sure some authors are, but you've really put a lot. You've thrown everything into this book as far as your passion, and you've put a lot of work into it. So I am excited about it. What is the title of your book again for the listeners?
It's great, Tony. It's Money Moves. Change where your money lives. Change how your financial world grows.
Money Moves. I love it. And I love it. And I love the subtitle because that's really great. And that's basically, we talk about a lot of ways to accomplish that on the show as well.
Well, the big thing, I was just trying to think about, like, how would I distill down? What does that really mean? Changing where your money lives changes how your financial world grows. And
Sure.
Tony, when you look at your money holistically, it's really about looking and understanding, like, the concept of leverage. And how do you have your money do more than one job? Because money that sits in a bank account, that's great for emergencies, but are you earning any kind of interest on that money?
Yeah, that's
If
the
that
question.
money is gone, it's just gone. So you need to have an emergency account, but that's one job. And you can understand how, Tony, I can't tell you how many people I sit down with that have a couple $100,000 just sitting in savings because they just don't know what to do with it. And they don't want to lose it, but they just don't know what to do with it. But that money is just not working for them. And you work hard for your money, so your money should have a job too. Your money should be working for you too.
Exactly. Well, and especially with inflation going the way it is, you don't want to have especially that much money. You need an emergency fund. You need some liquidity, as you've always told us on the show, and that's what you stress to your clients. But if you have that kind of an amount in something that's not bearing little or no interest, you're not keeping up with inflation. I mean, true inflation is probably over 7% right now, and official inflation is close between 6 and 7 right now and rising. So, that $200,000 is worth less every day that
Right.
inflation goes up. So, in 2 years from now, that's not going to be worth the same as it is today. So you need to have it in something that will make sure that amount grows at least as much as inflation, right?
You do, but I understand the fear of, well, I don't want to lose it. And so where do I put it?
Sure.
And then it's hard because then if people put it in the market, then they're like, well, I want to earn 20%. I'm like, yeah, we all do, but that's
Yeah.
not realistic either. So it's just trying to, it's like a process of educating people and showing them what they can do, as much as, because when you're afraid you just don't do anything. And I
Right.
think the only way to like shine a light on your fear is to just get some education and go, oh, okay, now I have a couple options and now I can pick.
Yeah.
So, but it's hard when you just don't know what to do. And then it's all also tied into trust. And so we talk about that in the book, Tony, and you and I have talked about it, is if I don't trust you, I may not listen to what you're saying. I might listen to it, but I may not probably do it.
Right. That's true. That's true. You have to work with a trusted financial services professional. You have to have a plan and you have to have a strategy, just so you can sleep well at night, right? Regarding your finances. And you don't want to, everybody, we're all emotional when it comes to our money or when we see things happening with the economy or with the stock market, as we've seen this January of this year was the worst month since March of 2020 for the stock market. So we saw huge losses. But the stock market over time, it depends on your time horizon. But people get emotional when these things happen, and
Well,
they see,
it's painful to lose money.
yeah, it is painful. Yes,
It is emotional.
yeah. Yeah, but that's why you have a plan in place and you have a balanced strategy, right? You don't have it all at risk.
You know what you're
And
going to do, because I can guarantee you that the market will go down. I just don't know when.
yeah, yeah,
And so you want to have that plan to go, oh, this is the market going down. We already have talked about it. I know what I'm going to do. And so
yeah,
that's not when you're panicking and going, ah, what am I going to do? You already go, oh, this is, yeah, we've got the plan. We're okay.
yeah, yeah.
And life will keep going.
Yep, exactly. And I know that you wanted to talk about some tax strategies and insights for 2022 for the new year. We're headed into tax season and there's always changes every year. So let's talk about this a little bit. I know you wanted to discuss some things that we may be able to do this year to have a strategy that you feel better about. I know in last week's show, we talked about, tax strategies for retirement, specifically your retirement accounts. This time we're talking more generally for everyone out there. And I think that's great. And I like where your head's at for this, because no matter, I think, if people are already retired or in the middle of their career, we hate to talk about it, but taxes are important. And like you said a minute ago, you've talked about, finances being nerve wracking, and we're always afraid that one little mistake is going to lead to an angry IRS agent knocking at our door, right? You don't want to hear that pounding, and that is like, is it an earthquake? No, it's just an IRS agent at my door. Well, that's worse. Um,
Right. I don't
so
know why it strikes fear in our hearts. It does.
I know it does. And they're not necessarily bad people, but nobody wants to experience that. So, what are we talking about here?
Well, and I love that you talk about that, Tony, because this is where my whole thing I talk about in the book of the team concept comes into play. So this show is all about giving you some good tips and ideas that you're going to talk with your tax preparer, your CPA, and your financial planner about, because all
Yep.
of these things come together with your money. So, as a financial planner, I don't do your taxes, but here's what I do is I say, here's some really good questions to ask your CPA, and we should look at trying to do things like this. And then that's where you get that tax advice and your financial planning advice to go, how do I get as much of my money as possible in a tax-free bubble so that I don't have to worry about what Congress is doing?
Right. There you go. But unfortunately, Congress did do some things that really had impacts last year in 2021. They made a lot of rules and changes, and made a lot of uh, you know uh, things that will affect our taxes as we do them this year. Right.
There is. And so let's just throw a couple of those out there so people are
Sure.
listening. They might perk their ears and go, oh, that matters for me.
Yeah.
So, it's one of the things is that there's an additional child tax credit.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people got stimulus payments. There were things this past year of pandemic unemployment assistance and PPP forgiveness.
Yep.
So I don't know how you guys are, but a lot of us that are procrastinators kind of put things off to the last minute.
Yep.
So because of it's been such a strange year with the pandemic and some of the different things you got that are out of the norm, you want to get started soon rather than waiting until the deadline.
Right. I mean, yeah, exactly. You don't want to wait until the last day before the tax deadline to do your taxes. That would be like waiting until the day before your report on War and Peace is due to even begin reading the book, right? So, but I mean, blowing your book report might mean a bad grade, but messing up your taxes, that could take a nasty bite out of your bank account, which is really impactful.
That and then the time it'll take to fix the problem.
Yes,
So
exactly. The paperwork involved, the time, the minutia, the red tape for your CPA and your financial advisor. And I think it's so important to work with not only just a CPA who's going to look back at the last year's taxes, but look ahead with your financial services professional. That's what we're talking about here. But there were a lot of things that took place in the last year or so that are going to impact your taxes this year. And so I think that's interesting as well, right?
it really is, Tony. And then I just, I hate to say it, but I think it's important to foot stomp this is security. And, when you get into taxes and you get buried and your desk gets covered with all your information, it's all your personal information. And you
Yep.
just really want to be cognizant of what you're doing with all that paperwork. Make sure you're shredding it when it's done. Being very careful, like what you send out over emails and because a smart people are just getting so savvy now with identity theft and things like that. It's not that hard to piece together a social security number, a
Yeah.
birthday, some accounts. And like when we're all buried underneath taxes, you're just like, just get this off my plate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would just say, as you're putting it all together, because I have to go through the same thing, is I have to pull all my documents together and I hand them over to my CPA. And by the time it gets to that point, it's nice and neat, but there's kind of a mess that happens before it gets there.
Sure, and that's right. Our tax documents. I've noticed this. I mean, it has everything on there. I mean, all the information on you and your family, and all your social security numbers, and sometimes even banking information for direct deposits. So you want to be safe. So, Tara, what's the best way our listeners and the safest way to get your tax forms and information to your accountant or financial services professional?
Well, what my accountant has done, which is great, is everything is now I can download the forms from the website and I can upload them right back up.
Yeah.
And so that
To a
keeps it
secure online, a lot of these places, and CPAs and yourself, you have a secure online portal that you can use, right?
and and there's always you can drop it off in person, but I
Yeah.
almost think like the portal is almost a better way because it's very secure and then all the information's there. And then if there's like the one form you missed, you don't have to drive all the way back to the CPA's office.
That's true. That's true, and managing your documents online, Tara, also means you have less paperwork to deal with, and that's to
Mhm.
me, that's, less paperwork to keep track of, less things to lose because you wanna have a copy of it, but if you have paper copies floating around, again, that's a security issue.
It is. And, and like the simple thing that I've learned to do, like I have an iPhone, like most people do, and you just go to that notes section and it'll actually let you scan a document right up
Yeah,
into a PDF and then you can send it where it needs to go. So you don't
it's
even need a
handy.
scanner anymore.
Yeah,
Just need your
that's
phone.
right.
And I try to do that like when I'm traveling and I have to file my travel vouchers for the Air Force. I take the receipt, I scan that document in, and so then I have it, and it's electronic, and I don't have to worry about trying to find it, and then it's easy to send it. So it's kind of like do it once and then you're done. But how many times have you had a piece of paper and like you move it from the front door to the kitchen table and then the kitchen table over to the couch because you're on your way to the office and you got distracted, and then next thing you know
Sure.
you're like, where was I?
Yeah. So what exactly? So what's the next point we need to be aware of when it comes to taxes this year?
Well, it's just you want to make sure that you get that complimentary tax fact sheet. And so, your CPA should have one. And you want to look at those things to go, hey, what should I be doing? And here's the thing, too, it's important is your tax preparer, your CPA is not a mind reader.
That's
So
true.
they don't know what you've done. And I bring this up because I'm thinking about it right now for my book. Because 10 years ago, I published a book, and so we actually have a publishing company. It's a publishing company. I've had it for 10 years. I haven't published another book, but this year I am publishing the book. And so my CPA, is the question of, well, does my book go in? Is it a marketing cost for my business? Or does it a publishing company cost for my publishing company? And so this is the conversation I'm having with my CPA to say,
Wow.
well, what's the right way to manage that? And they're
Wow.
not going to know that unless I remind them.
Yeah, I would have never thought of that too. So that's why it's important to, and you have a mind for that. So, and that's another really benefit you offer your clients and our listeners. If they talk through what they're doing and have businesses or have business decisions like that, you can say, hey, that's a tax issue. You need to figure out what's going to work the best. Let's talk to your CPA. Let's sit down and figure out a tax strategy to deal with that. And just like you are with your book, it is, you do use it for marketing for your financial company, but you're also an author and it's a standalone book. That lots of people will read. So it's interesting in figuring out the best way to do that and to minimize that tax burden is important.
Right. And so, Tony, this is probably just a good time to remind everyone listening today that as you're going through this and you're kind of digging through your taxes, this is the great time to also be thinking about your financial review. And so, for anyone
Yep.
out there who's ready to get that second opinion to go, do I have the right financial tax strategy in place to set me up for success in retirement? Give
Sure.
Chris and I a call at 719-210-4242. And Tony, people can visit the website, www.nolanfinancialpartners.com. You can actually set up a discovery call through the website. But again, Tony, that we do an initial complimentary appointment to see if there's going to be a way that we can work together and help each other.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I encourage our listeners to do that. Pick up the phone, give Chris and Tara a call, set up that no charge, no obligation consultation. They'll look at where you're at, assess, your risk tolerance and where your money's at, how much risk versus safety, and it really get a balanced strategy, including taxes. Obviously, this time of year, that's on everybody's mind. In fact, during today's show, Terry, you've been talking about some tax strategies and insights for this new year. Now, I know you wanted to switch things up a bit, and we were talking before the show. You wanted to highlight some of the things that may raise the interest of the folks at the IRS.
Yeah.
Red flags to avoid. Nobody wants to get audited and nobody wants to get in trouble with the IRS. So you have some red flags to let our listeners know, avoid these things to avoid that IRS audit. And I think this is an intriguing topic. What do you have for us first?
Well, and Tony, this is where I just say having that close relationship with your CPI is a wonderful thing because,
Yes.
with my CPA, I always say I want to walk, I don't ever want to cross the line, but
Right.
I want to walk right up to it.
Well,
But,
sure.
and I rely on my CPA to keep me honest.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest things is just, I think, well, I always tell this when I'm mentoring in the Air Force to my lieutenants and airmen, just tell the truth. Just
Yeah.
like you can do a lot of things wrong, but just don't ever lie.
Yes.
And so report all your income. And this was a funny thing with my CPA I used to go back and forth with. When I have time, Tony, one of the things I enjoy doing is giving writing lessons. I love
Yeah.
teaching. When I
Yes, you
teach,
do.
it helps me learn. And
Yeah.
and so I'm like, well, I want to be able to deduct that because that's a service. I'm getting paid. And my
Sure.
CPA, he is like, nope.
Oh.
Nope. He's like, there is no bigger red flag to wave to the IRS than to say I have a horse business. Because
In other
apparently
words, so Yeah, so a lot of people are guilty of that. I used to do that too, where I would buy and sell some records online and do some things with music. And so my CPA said, nope, that's a hobby, not do you you're not kidding yourself that you're going to make a profit on this, because I never had. You're going to spend a lot of money, but you're
Right.
not going to make a lot of money,
Right.
and that's called a hobby. And my wife reminds me of that too, Tara, is you spend a lot of money. You're trying to convince me that this is a business, and I'm trying to convince my wife, my family, and the IRS this is a serious business that could really help us all. But I'm only spending money, not making any, or not ever making a profit, at least. So
Right.
therefore, it is a hobby, and hobbies, you don't want to start trying to write off things for your hobbies, even if you do make some money from them. You have to have a profits at some point, right?
Exactly. And, I do foresee at some point in my life in the future when things settle down, I probably will delve into that more because I love teaching, but I'm
Sure.
not in that spot right now. So,
Yeah.
Tony, goes back to that team concept, why you want to have that CPA, you want to have that estate
Yeah.
planning attorney, you want those people on your team
Yep.
because you want to say, hey, here's what I want to do. And that's your job to ask the questions. And then you want those subject matter experts to help you and go, well, you can do this, you can
Yep.
not that. One of the other changes that's going to affect me with just like when you travel and do business travel, it used to be you could just deduct your entertainment and all the meals, and they've made some significant changes in that world as well.
Sure.
So this is why it's also so important to be working with your financial planner and your CPA is rules will change. So something
That's
that
true.
has been legal for like the last 10 years you've been filing taxes, it's different now.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it's
And
and
so go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, you can get audited and you don't need to be afraid of that. But
True.
it's so much better if you just have a CPA that you've worked with for years. I had about 2 years ago, I had some kind of a weird thing where the state gave me a refund, but they gave me a refund back to a business that I didn't have a bank account set up for. It was just like a doing business as, and
Yeah.
so I couldn't cash the check. And so, oh my
Oh,
gosh, it
no.
was just, I was so glad to have my CPA be able to work through the nuggets to go like, I have this $10,000 check and I can't cash it.
Yikes.
and and so we had to work through that, and
Sure.
it would have been hard to do that by myself. And it was really nice just to be able to pull in my team member and say, hey,
Yeah.
help me out with this.
And that's why you have a team there. You have estate planning attorneys you work with and CPAs you work with, and I know that you and Chris do that to help your clients, and you can do the same for our listeners as well. If they might already have their own trusted CPA or estate planning person they've worked with. If they don't, you have that back end team there that you can use. So I think that's really important. And when it comes to taxes, like you say, don't try to hide income from the IRS. You don't ever want to do that. And if you lose your 1099 or W 2, you want to make sure that you have those and you give them to your CPA, or that you include them on your taxes. Because the IRS gets copies of those, right? You
Exactly.
don't want to learn that lesson the hard way.
Right. And the thing is if it's an honest mistake, it's an honest mistake, but make sure that you're giving your CPA everything that they can to have success. And then another big red flag, Tony, can be with charities. And
Ah,
I
yes.
love charitable giving. I think that's an important part of a
I
good
think so too.
financial plan. I think a healthy relationship with money includes giving as part of your
Yeah.
plan. And this is where you just want to talk to your CPA and say, I am interested, especially like I know some people who have like a couple of big charities, and Tony, they'll rotate the years. And
Yeah.
so that way they can make an impact here or an impact there. And your CPA can help you understand where those break points are and what you can donate and how you can donate. So sometimes your charitable giving is just because you know it's the right thing to do. But
Yeah.
that's why you want to talk, because all things equal, if it's a win-win and you can do the good thing and also get the benefit, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, and you wanna hang on to, when it comes to charitable giving, to avoid, any issues with the IRS, make sure you hang on to those, documents and receipts that they give you.
Hmm.
And some people like to give to various charities, but they will send you usually a statement for your taxes. Make sure you're watching out for that and you don't throw it away with the junk mail, and make sure you give it to your CPA. And it's the same with a lot of people give to their churches or tithe. It's the same. You really need to, if it is a tax deduction, then you want to make sure that usually they'll send you again a letter in the mail saying, hey, over the year, you've given us this much money. And so that is a tax deduction that you can possibly take. But again, your CPA will know, because it depends on the type of deduction, if you do standard deductions or itemized, and how much you give. And it'll cause a red flag, right, Tara? If if you the last 10 years you've given this much, and all of a sudden this year you've given, you give an extra 100 grand to a charity, you're probably going to get audited, right? And try to write it off your taxes, right?
Exactly. And the next thing, Tony, is you want to think about what your business status is. So there's two sides to this fence. So there's people who have the little at-home business that they're making a go of, and they're trying to do the tax deductions. And that's where it's tough, because you got to, like you said, you got to show a profit. I think the rule is you have to show, a profit a few years out of like every 7 or so. But the safer bet is if you're not really making a profit, it's probably not really a business yet.
It's a hobby.
But Tony, I have people on the other end. I have some clients that are making high 6 figures, and it's just their business has just grown and got away from them. They're so busy working in the business that they have never set up an entity. So they're just a sole proprietorship by default. And they are missing out on all the good things. Our tax code in this country is really set up to support business owners.
Yeah.
And
especially small and medium-sized businesses, there's a lot of benefits.
Exactly. And I'm working with this client going, okay, and your CPA has been telling you the same thing too. It's time. Now it's time to become an LLC or a C Corp, because there's things financially that are going to set you up for success in retirement, and then helping to put that whole tax strategy into play.
Yep.
So you're in trouble when your CPA and your financial planner are ganging up on you.
True. And speaking of time, though, we're out of time. This show just flew by. I can't believe it. But let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you before we go.
Sure, Tony. So again, the whole point of this show is you need to have a tax strategy when it comes to your finances. If you don't have one, give Chris and I a call at 719-210-4242. And again, Tony, let me emphasize, that's a strategy in conjunction with your CPA that makes sense to set you up for success in retirement. That number is 719-210-4242. Chris and I just love to take people, and we love it when we can say, here's what you're doing. And if you just made these changes, you would even be doing it better, and you'd be reaching that maximum financial potential.
All right. Well, that sounds great, Tara. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Nolan Financial Radio with our host, Tara Nolan.
Join us soon for another episode of Nolan Financial Radio. Take care, and we'll talk with you next time.